I don't know what it is, but there's nothing more comforting than a big bowl of pasta. I mean, it's the freaking best. And I'm sure you guys can tell with how many pasta dishes we've already made, but whatever. Today we're going with a creamy, tomatoey, blackened chicken pasta that's obviously super good and super simple, so let's jump into how to make it. As usual, we'll get started with our pasta and get that out of the way first. We'll get a pot of water to a boil here and then hit that with some salt once it starts boiling. Now I'm going to go in with 227 grams of Banza penne pasta, aka my favorite pasta, but any bite-sized pasta will work here, so don't fret if you don't have penne. We'll let the pasta cook for however long it needs, but once it's done, we'll drain it and set it off to the side and before we come back to it later. Alright, so now it's time for our protein, which is chicken today, but the first thing we need to do is make a seasoning, so let's do that. To a small mixing bowl, I'm going to toss in 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of ancho chili powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and then I would add 1 to 2 teaspoons of oregano, but I'm out of oregano, so I'm using 1 to 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning here instead. And you can also add dried thyme in addition to the oregano if you want, that'd be great. But we'll mix this up and make sure everything is well distributed, and then it's one big seasoning fest. So let's bring in our chicken, for which I have 850 grams of chicken breast that you can see I just flattened out as I always do. We'll add some oil to our chicken and then generously season everything. Want to make sure everything's covered, so don't go light here. Make sure all those nooks and crannies are seasoned and the whole chicken doesn't have any unseasoned parts. Oh, and I forgot to add salt to our mixing bowl earlier, so I'm going to do that now. I'm using roughly 2 teaspoons here for the chicken. Alright, perfect. So with all of our chicken seasoned, we can go ahead and sear it. I have a cast iron skillet set over medium-high heat, and that's already been oiled, so we're going to go ahead and put our chicken in. And for blackened chicken, I'd highly recommend using a cast iron if you had one. It's not totally necessary, but preferable for getting that crust and sear. And also, I guess I'll just note this here, some people confuse blackened chicken with burnt chicken, and it's not the same thing. You're not looking to burn the chicken, you're just charring the seasoning on the outside, and the blackened look comes from that seasoning mix that we added. In other words, your pan doesn't have to be hotter than the sun to get that blackened look. I mean, you can see mine set over more or less medium heat, and we're getting a pretty good sear on ours. But anyways, all of our chicken cooked, I'm going to set it off to the side and let it rest, and then I'll cut it up into bite-sized pieces before we add it back in later. In the meantime, let's cook the rest of our dish. In the same pan set over roughly medium heat, we'll toss in 250 grams of diced yellow onion, and I kept my dice decently small, but if you want a bigger or smaller dice, just cut it up that way. It's your preference. Very simply, just let the onions cook for roughly 3 minutes or so on medium heat. We want to just start developing some color on the onion, and we also want to scrape some of that fond off the bottom of the pan, so do that while you're cooking. That'll add a decent amount of flavor. But when your onion is cooked through, make a well in the center here, and then toss in 4 cloves of minced garlic, and hit that with a little oil too so it doesn't burn. We'll give it about a minute or so, or just until the garlic starts to brown a little bit, and then we'll start tossing everything together like so. Alright, once that's mixed well, we'll go in with 1 14.5 ounce can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, and the fire roasted part is obviously optional, but highly recommended. And then on top of that, we'll add in 60 grams of whipped cream cheese to help provide some nice creaminess to the dish. Now let's mix this up a little, make sure everything is well incorporated and distributed evenly, and once we're there, we can go ahead and toss in our cooked pasta back in now. And then on top of that, I'm going to add back in our cooked chicken, which you can see I went ahead and just diced up on the side. And if you're smarter than me, you'll think ahead and use a bigger pan because I'm trying to mix everything together in this little tiny pan. It's a bit of a challenge, but we'll get it done either way. And once we do, the final ingredient I'm going to add is 35 grams of freshly grated Parmesan that we'll just sprinkle all over the top here. And I'm actually going to reserve a little bit of Parmesan for garnish later, but you can just add all of it now. And you can also mix everything in, but what I'm going to do is broil this bad boy for about 30 seconds to a minute, which will end up looking something like this when it's done. And my, oh my, that looks good. But just like that, we're done, so let's go ahead and prep. It's a straightforward process here, obviously. We'll portion out our pasta equally into 5 different servings, and if you wanted, you can keep the chicken and pasta separately. It's up to you. I generally just find it easier to mix everything together at once, but it's up to you, whatever makes your life easiest. And you can also add a little bit of fresh parsley over the top as well for some nice garnish, but I was being lazy today, so I'm not going to do that. But in any event, some dishes are good, no doubt, but some dishes really pump me up, and this is definitely one of them. I'm super eager to jump in. So you guys try it out too. Let me know what you think, but I'm super excited for this one. Here's the recipe list for reference, and this will of course be up on our website and the description as well if that's an easier place for you guys to reference. And check out our Instagram page too if you have a chance. We're trying to get those followers up. But thanks a ton for watching. Let us know if you have any requests, and we look forward to sharing more recipes ahead.